The state top-to-bottom ranking is a list published every year by the Michigan Department of Education that says that it shows the quality of every Michigan school. So you see top-to-bottom schools ranked in the 99th percentile, meaning they're doing very well, and schools ranked in the first percentile, meaning they're doing very poorly. So what this study was a reaction to realizing that the top-to-bottom ranking is really just a measure of student poverty, which is a tremendous problem because the state is basing consequences on this list. So suddenly, if you have a list that the majority of it is based on the number of students in your school who are coming from poverty backgrounds, if the majority of it is based on that, and you're penalizing schools for performance on that list, you can see where you're starting to discourage schools from taking in needy students. You have to think about reality. You have to take reality into account. It would be wonderful if we lived in a world where every student in Michigan came from a family that was not struggling. But the fact of the matter is we don't. And it is simply folly to pretend that Grosse Pointe students are coming from the same background that, say, Detroit students are coming from. So if you don't take into that account, you are not taking into account something that explains the majority of a school's performance, and you are leaving valuable information on the table. So then to penalize schools without taking into account that information means that you are using a flawed and incomplete system. The center wouldn't be doing this if there weren't serious consequences. Principals have been told to leave schools because of their school's rankings. Thanks to federal requirements and guidance, schools actually have the threat of being closed or reopened as a charter school on the grounds of this list. Michigan legislators have included this list in legislation to expand the statewide Education Achievement Authority, which would take over failing schools. So think about it. We all wish that we had a list that could tell us how a school was doing with complete certainty, but we don't. So we have to think about policies that take that into account, the fact that schools serve different populations. One crystal clear example is Thurkel Elementary, a Detroit public school. On the Mackinac Center's report card, which does take into account socioeconomic status, Thurkel was the #1 elementary or middle school in the state. However, on the state report card, Thurkel is in the bottom 5%, which means that it is going to be subject to consequences. We understand that Michigan is subject to federal requirements. So what we did is we looked at 7 other states and what their ranking systems are like and whether they have that same strong relationship with student poverty. Surprisingly, Michigan's is the worst. Michigan's has the tightest fit to student poverty. There are other states out there, such as Arizona, that have a very loose relationship with poverty when it comes to ranking schools. Those other states pay closer attention to student growth as opposed to just raw student test scores. So Arizona and Florida, for example, include a component that measures the growth of students who are struggling the most in each school in their report cards. There was a lot of backlash this fall when the state released its latest top-to-bottom rankings, what some have called the rainbow report card because they included colors and were very confusing to parents. The whole point of a state report card is to send a signal to schools and tell them how they're doing. And because there are consequences, it is so important that we get that signal right. So this study is really designed to show that other states might be doing it better. Some might say that poverty is no excuse for school performance, and some might accuse us of saying that we should give schools a pass for serving needy students. That simply isn't the case. These rankings are not used to dictate expectations for students. These are only used to send a signal to schools. So this is not about lowering expectations for needy students. This is about having an accurate measure of school quality.